recognized symbol of excellence for your entertainment.
It feels very, very comfortable. I hope it seems that way. I feel fine about it. No, I'm fine.
Welcome to Machino Music, show that puts the music in Machino music, with your host, me, Brett Strong. Today on Machino Music, it's 80's KISS album ranking. The 80s period of KISS, very divisive. Most people will just rank the entire catalog, but I'm going to rank the 80s discography of KISS. Alright, here we go. 80s KISS album ranking. Interesting time for this band. They're coming out of the 70s. They're into the 80s, got some new members in the band. And actually, KISS transitioned well into this hair metal, glam metal, whatever you want to call it. Because their songs were always very anthemic in the first place, so it wasn't a hard transition. But we're going to start at the bottom here with, from 1981, Music from the Elder. I don't own this album, so I'm pointing up to it as we do on the show, and I don't have something to show. But, you know, a lot of people listen to the bottom say it's a horrible album. I don't think it's horrible. It's actually a pretty good album. The only thing I think it suffers from is that it is the soundtrack to a movie that was never made. So a lot of the songs don't really make any sense, and they don't really go anywhere. But there's some good songs on it. I mean, World Without Heroes, really good song. Collaboration between Gene Simmons and Lou Reed. Also, The Oath, Mr. Blackwell, those are really good songs. Another problem I have with this album is it was the first album with Eric Carr, who's my favorite rock drummer, favorite metal drummer of all time. And this should have been his statement, like, I'm in KISS. Now, we'll get to that, what I think is his true statement, a bit later on. But the first song is like Renaissance music, a song called Fanfare, but that's just an intro. Then the next song is called Just a Boy, and it's just another kind of like just boring, kind of like ballady kind of song, kind of with still that Renaissance. I don't listen to a KISS album to hear medieval music, to hear Renaissance music. So you want to hear that those bands. I mean, The Oath would have been a great song, or I would have been a great song to start it off with. But we didn't get that. But, you know, I don't think a horrible album. I just think it suffers from being, you know, a soundtrack to a movie that was never made, so it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So that's at the bottom. Next up we got Unmasked, 1980. This was the last of the classic lineup, the 70s KISS lineup. 70s are over, KISS are moving into the 80s, but they're still building off of what they've done on Dynasty, their disco album, I Was Made for Loving You. That kind of sound continues on here. But there's still some good tunes on here. I mean, it's not absolutely horrible. She's So European, Gene Simmons song, really cool, like that one. Pretty heavy. It's also funny, got funny lyrics. Ace Frehley, what he did contribute to this album. Talk to Me is a good song. Torpedo Girl, Two Sides of the Coin. Really good songs. I also really like Naked City. I like Shandy. I do like that song. A lot of people dump on Shandy, but I actually do really like that song. And fun fact, the lead character in my movie High Speed Flamingo was named after the KISS song Shandy. But yeah, this is a good album, not one I go back to a lot. Really a lot of session people on this. I mean, Ace Frehley, Peter Criss did not really contribute on here. Ace played on his songs, but mainly it was Bob Kulick whose brother Bruce would eventually join the band full-time. You also got Anton Fig filling in for Peter Criss. So, you know, it's the band's coming apart, but still pretty good album, and really cool album cover. Kiss Unmasked, and then, you know, they're just wearing their face paint under their masks. So it's like, yeah. So much for that. But this comic book style, really cool. Love that album cover. All right, next up, another album that I don't own, but Animalize. This is from 1984. Pretty good. Some really cool songs in here. Actually has a really great guitar sound. And it's actually a really heavy album. I mean, the opening song, I've Had Enough, Into the Fire, heavy tune. Sounds awesome. Great opening track. You got Heaven's on Fire, which was the big hit. They still play that live on their farewell tour, their final tour. I mean, you never know. Because where there's money, Gene Simmons will be there. But I think this truly is the end. But on this album, playing the guitar, you got Mark St. John. Now, I always felt he was not a very good fit for the band. I mean, great guitar player, but always sounded like he was kind of doing his own thing. And just didn't quite fit. And actually, there's an interview with Paul Stanley that said that Mark St. John would play stuff, but he couldn't remember it. So he'd do this like a really amazing solo or amazing riff or something. Oh, do that again, but he couldn't repeat it. And said, well, you know, and he was all about playing fast. And it was like, you know, you could listen to some Eric Clapton solos, listen to some Jimi Hendrix solos, something with a little bit of melody. But he was like, well, I can play faster than those guys. Like, it was all about playing fast. It was like, so he wasn't kind of a good fit. And also, he had arthritis problems, so he couldn't always play live with the band. So, you know, Paul Stanley would have to do the guitar solos, and Paul Stanley's a rhythm guitar guy, not a lead guy. I mean, I play rhythm guitar. I can't play leads very well, but, you know, you got to give it to Paul Stanley for at least doing something with, you know, the situation. But, you know, still a good album, you know, as far as like what they were doing. But I just find, overall, I find some of the songs very forgettable. But not bad, and a very tragic ending, actually, to Mark St. John's life, if you want to look that up. But yeah, not bad. Alright, here we go from 1987, Crazy Nights. This one's pretty good. This is really kind of going in the glam metal direction. Even the way the band was dressing at the time. I mean, oh, hey, look at Paul Stanley there. Look at that chest hair. Woohoo! Yeah, and he's wearing like ladies' underwear. So, talk about glam. Here we go. But yeah, not bad. Some good songs in here. The title track, Crazy Crazy Nights, great. I'll Fight Hell to Hold You. Hell or High Water, I like. Reason to Live, great song. Turn on the Night, I don't mind. Thief in the Night, probably one of Gene Simmons' best vocal performances. Really like that song. And actually around the same time, Gene Simmons produced the Wendy O. Williams album, Wow, her initials. And a lot of the songs and sort of in the band played on the Wendy O. Williams album. And she does a version of Thief in the Night, which I actually might like a little bit better than the Kiss version. I mean, it's heavy. It's a heavy version. But I like the one on here. As I said, probably one of Gene Simmons' best vocal performances. But yeah, this is a pretty good album. It's just, you know, kind of, the production's like very, very crisp. So if you want a more raw production, like the 70s albums, you're not really going to get it on here, but just a time. And of course, Bruce Kulick is now full-time in the band. All right, next up we got Hot in the Shade from 1989. A lot of people might put this one down at the bottom, but I actually really like this one. This one's really good. Good opening title track, Rise to It. Hide Your Heart, really cool song, really like that one. That song was also covered by Molly Hatchet, and actually Bonnie Tyler did a cover of it. Paul Stanley's bringing a lot, like Desmond Child was the kind of go-to collaborator songwriter that Paul Stanley's bringing in at this time, because Gene Simmons was kind of off in a different place throughout the 80s. He wanted to make it in movies, so he was kind of, disenchanted. He would appear on the albums, but it was really Paul Stanley sailing the ship at this point during the history of Kiss. Read My Body, I don't mind. Kind of, like, that's a pretty heavy riff on it. And also the drums on it, kind of the cowbell, kind of Latin sounding thing, the opening. Reminds me of the old, the classic Tito Santana entrance music. Cadillac Dreams, good song. And actually, one of my favorite Kiss songs is on this album, the closer, Boomerang. I mean, Eric Carr is drumming on this is so great, and the guitar playing, and dare I say, Boomerang borders on thrash metal. Yeah. I mean, it's very crisp, but with a more raw production, the song would be awesome. But yeah, really love Boomerang. Fantastic song, one of my favorite Kiss songs. So that's what, like, those songs that I really like on here kind of put this one up a bit higher. But yeah, not bad. All right, continuing on here from 1985, Asylum. This is a really good album. I really like this album. Great intro, great Eric Carr intro, drum intro on this. King of the Mountain, great song. Love the intro on that. Who Wants to Be Lonely, one of my favorite Kiss songs, love it. Tears Are Falling, that's a good song. One of the big hits from this album. And actually, disenchanted as he was, Gene Simmons looked really happy in a few shots of the Tears Are Falling video. Yeah, Secretly Cruel, really good song. Radar for Love, I don't mind. The only song I don't really like in this album is All Night. UH, exclamation point, All Night. I mean, it's a total sex song, but it's just dumb. It's dumb lyrics. But, I like the music. Musically, it's great. Got a pretty cool riff on it. But just the lyrics are dumb. Yeah, if it was an instrumental, hey, that'd be great. Yeah, so I really like this album. Yeah. And again, it's animated, but Paul Stanley with that chest hair, wild and free. Look at that. And they were very glammy here. This is the real glam Kiss, 1985. All were different shades of flipped lipstick. Bruce Kulick with the blue. He's full-time now. All right. From 1983, Lick It Up. This was the first album without makeup. This was the big statement. This was like, okay, we're taking the makeup off. We're going in a different direction. And it's a really good album. I mean, it's pretty heavy. I mean, the opening track, Exciter, I think is one of the most pure, just metal Kiss songs. Great song. And Rick Derringer, Rick Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo Derringer, plays the guitar solo on Exciter. It's a great song. Lick It Up, the title track, is great. All Hell's Breaking Loose, great song. Horrible music video, but a great song. Million to One, Dance All Over Your Face, and On the Eighth Day. Yeah. And there's Vinnie Vincent. He was in the band at this time. Although, when the band Unmasked, it was kind of like, oh. Like, it was like, oh, that's what Paul Stanley looks like. That's what Gene Simmons looks like. And then, like, the other two, like, Eric Carr hadn't been in the band very long. And, Vinnie Vincent was like, oh, that's what he looks like, and, well, I don't really care.
Vinnie Vincent, lead guitarist and co-writer of many of the songs on the current Kiss album. Eric Carr, drummer, has been with the band since 1979. And KISS is, by the way, the very first band that Eric has ever been with. Paul Stanley, rhythm guitarist and lead vocalist. Paul is a co-founder of the group. Gene Simmons, bass, also co-founder of KISS. He is the fire-breathing, blood-spitting monster of KISS.
But yeah, really like this one. This is like probably one of the heavier 80s KISS albums. And like I usually say on here, usually it takes like one song to kind of maybe put that album a little bit in. Exciter. Man, what an opener. Great tune. And we go to number one, Creatures of the Night from 1982. This is my favorite KISS album, so kind of makes sense that it's my favorite KISS album from the 80s. Just love, love, love this album. I mean, just the opener. I mean, this, I think, even like I was saying about music from the Elder. This, I thought, was Eric Carr's statement. I mean, when the opening track comes in, Creatures of the Night, so heavy. Eric Carr is like I am the new drummer for KISS. That's the statement on the song and the rest of the album. So great. Yeah, just love it. Saint and Sinner, Keep Me Coming, Rock and Roll Hell, I Love It Loud, that was kind of the big hit. And had that weird video, the kids with all the big glowing eyes. And then you see KISS with the glowing eyes, and it's like it's so obvious that it's not them, it's just dummies. And of course they're making you still believe that Ace Frehley is in the band, even though he doesn't play on this album. I mean, he appears in the videos. He's in the I Love It Loud video, and he was on some like appearances at this time. But it was Vinnie Vincent. They also had some other session players playing on here too. But it was Vinnie Vincent playing mostly on this, but they wanted to make you feel like Ace Frehley was in the band. So you got, you still got the Star Child, Paul Stanley. You still got the Demon, Gene Simmons. Eric Carr in his Fox makeup. That was his character, the Fox. And then the Spaceman, Space Ace, but it was actually the Egyptian warrior, Vinnie Vincent. And then they unmasked, and we didn't, get to see much of, Vinnie Vincent in the Egyptian warrior makeup. But that's how it went. But yeah, this is such a great album. And actually, Bryan Adams. Bryan Cuts Like a Knife. Bryan Summer of '69 Adams co-wrote some songs on this. And I hate Bryan Adams. I'm just going to go on a rant here. I hate Bryan Adams. I mean, if you like Bryan Adams, that's fine. You can like Bryan Adams, that's okay. But to me, I can't stand the guy. I hope Bryan Adams falls down an open sewer. Yeah, so there's my little rant on Bryan Adams. And actually, a little bit of fun trivia. There was a recent interview on Howie Mandel's podcast where he was interviewing Paul Stanley, and he said that he was in the recording studio during the recording of this album and actually ended up on the song War Machine. So Howie Mandel's doing background vocals on War Machine. I mean, it was like Gene Simmons was had his hands in so many different, he was trying to get into Hollywood. He was schmoozing around with all kinds of people. And I guess happened to know like Howie Mandel's manager, something like this. So Howie Mandel ended up in the recording studio, and he ended up on the song War Machine in that chorus. And I wouldn't be surprised if he also ended up on I Love It Loud, because that has a big chorus which has a bunch of voices in it. But he said War Machine. So there you go, a little fun trivia. Howie Mandel is one of the voices in the mix of War Machine and maybe some other tracks on here. But yeah, there you go. Very interesting. But yeah, love this album. My favorite KISS album of the 80s and my favorite KISS album. Interesting period for this band. Transitional, but they did transition very well. They made it work. All the different lineup changes and all kind of stuff that was going on. They had a good solid lineup with the, Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Bruce Kulick, and Eric Carr. That's the classic 80s lineup. And I really like this period of the band. And if you're a fan of it too, I hope you enjoyed this. There you go, 80s Kiss album ranking. That's it for this week. Until we meet again, this is Brett Strong saying good journey.